Hello, everyone. So this week, we all over the world we read the next two chapters of Torah, Achrei Mois Gdoishim, which is translated after the death. Talks about the sons of Aaron, and Gdoishim is the next parsha. But the interesting that the fact that they're connected. Very often, Achrei Mois Gdoishim, after people fall and die, protecting their values, they become holy. They're elevated to the status of holiness. And in the past week, we celebrated, commemorated two important days. One is Yom HaShoah, and one is Yom HaZikaron. Yom HaShoah is the day which we remember the victims of the Holocaust. And Yom HaZikaron, we remember those fallen soldiers who died to protect the land of Israel. And in few days, we'll celebrate Victory Day, 9 Maya, 9th of May, which is the victory in the Second World War. So how we are supposed to relate to these days, to these actions, to what happened in the history on a national level. It happened many years ago, and it didn't happen to us personally. So how are we supposed to relate? This is us, and this is them, and it happened to them. It didn't happen to us. So do we just celebrate Drin L'chaim, or there's a deeper connection to that? So when you go back again, we're going back to Pesach, and in the Pesach Haggadah it says that B'chol Dor, in every generation, the person has to look at himself as if he personally came out from Egypt. Ki'ilu hu yotze miMitzrayim. So what does it mean that every generation nowadays we have to look at ourselves as if we personally, I came out from Egypt, not them, but I and you. We all came out of Egypt, but how are we supposed to feel? Because it didn't happen to us. So I'll give you an example. So imagine when you were little, let's say 5, 7 years old, and you were in the kitchen and you were not listening. Your mother told you not to come close to the stove, and there was a pot of water boiling, and you spilled this hot water on your hand. So now you're a father or grandfather, and you tell your son or child or grandchild, you tell them the same thing that your mother told you: don't come close to the stove. And your child says, why? And you say, you know what? Many years ago, when I was a little boy like you, or girl, I spilled the water on this hand, and you show the child this hand. This is exactly where I burned my hand. So a child looks at your hand and says, but there's no sign of burn anymore. You said, yeah, because it happened many years ago. And your child is smart. He learned in school, and he says, but Tati, I learned that cells regenerate themselves after a certain time. So is it true that there's no cell on your hand left from those years when you were a child? And you say, that's true. So the child says, so how come? Why do you say that this is the hand that was burned? It's not the same hand. There's nothing left in this hand that was burned. It's a good question. So what do you answer? And the answer is, yes, it's true. There's no cell left in my body which was present when I was a little child. But as long as the new cells come out from those cells, as a result of those cells, as long as we share the same DNA, it doesn't matter how long is the chain, it's still the same cells. We can say it's the same cells. Because as long as we share the root, we share the tradition, it's the same. Even though practically it's not, but it comes from the same source and comes as a result of those previous cells. So with confidence, you can say, yeah, this is the same hand. And the same applies to our nation. Yes, it didn't happen to me personally, but as long as I share the same values, and I come from the same root, and I share the same genes of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rochel, Leah, it's the same nation. I'm the same, and it happened to me personally. I was in Egypt. I was in Spanish Inquisition. I was in the Holocaust. I was fighting for the land of Israel, because we're one nation going through time. We are all connected. But what's interesting is that it's a two-way street. It's not only actions of those people affected me and I'm part of it. It's also what I do, I benefit the people who passed away. How is it possible? And how do I know it's true? And how do I know it's true? Because it says in the Torah, when God tells Abraham that you will have children and the big nation will come out from you, and he took him outside, says Torah, and he showed him the sky with stars, sky full of stars. You know those like in the summer when you're outside, out of town, the sky full of stars, and he says, look at the stars and count them if you can count them. That's how multiple your nation will be. So implication is count them if you can count them, because it's impossible to count them, right? And that's how multiple your nation will be. But our rabbis ask the question, everything visible is possible to count. Yes, it takes a long time. I can make a snapshot of the sky, using these fancy smartphones. I can make a panoramic view and sit down. It will take me weeks, but I count every little dot, and it is possible. It is possible to count. And also our nation, it is possible to count. It will take a long time, right? But it is possible. So what does it mean? Look at the stars, implying that it's impossible to count. And our rabbis say, yes, everything visible is possible to count, but we know that in the sky there are many stars that are not visible or not visible anymore. But they are present as much as those who are visible. They're still present, we just don't see them. But they are present and they affect other stars. And that's how people who passed away, they're the stars who don't shine anymore, but they're very much present. Talmud says, Bra mezake Abba. The expression is, son can benefit, can merit the father who passed away. What does it mean? What it means is that we're all connected. We're all connected. And what we do in this world while we're alive, we not only influence and shape our future generation, but we also benefit and merit the people who passed away, people who we are connected with. They're very much part of our life. And that's how it goes back also. And that's how we all connected. We travel as one nation through time and space. And as long as we share the same values, as long as we share the same DNA, that we're all Jewish people, as long as we share that concept, that Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, there is a creator in the world, that God, Torah, and land of Israel are one. We travel through time and space as one nation. And yes, everything that happened to them, it happened to me. And that's how we teach our children, that our national history, it all happens to us. Am Yisrael Chai. Good Shabbos.